extraordinary week. Let's stay on Capitol Hill and turn to Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell. First, your thoughts on what counts as a moment of extraordinary bipartisanship and compromise. Jeff Flake calling for a delay so that the FBI background check can look into Professor Ford's allegations. Your thoughts?
Good afternoon, Nicole. It was the right thing to do. The claims are serious. The witness yesterday was credible, and it is something that falls within the purview of what law enforcement can do and should do. And so I think they should let law enforcement do their job and not rely on 5-minute question and answer sessions with senators.
I want to ask you about sort of the of the day yesterday. I think it was a wrenching day, no matter what's your ideology. I don't think you could watch the hearings and not be gutted. Chris Christie called it a primal scream of our political system. John Harris writes in Politico that Kavanaugh was fluent in the language of contempt toward our adversaries. And Jonathan Swan from Axios is here. He's writing about a double impeachment conversations, not just for Donald Trump, but for Judge Kavanaugh, should he be confirmed. Let him throw a question your way on that topic.
Sure.
Congressman, how are you?
Hey, Jonathan.
Quick question. Michael Avenatti, I spoke to him today. He says he's already said there should be a litmus test for 2020 Democrats, that the Supreme Court should be expanded to 11 to make up for the 2 seats he believed were stolen. He's now saying today a new litmus test should be a full FBI investigation of Kavanaugh, not just Dr. Ford, but the other allegations. And if he's caught perjuring, he should be impeached. What do you think of such litmus tests?
Well, I think first we should let the Senate do their job now, count on them to do their job. We don't want to see a judge sent to the Supreme Court with asterisks or question marks around him. And that's not to threaten that the House would conduct impeachment proceedings into perjury or refer it to the Judicial Conference, which typically happens if there's questions around judges, but to say to the Senate, don't allow these witnesses to go unquestioned. Question them so that we don't have serious questions around this nominee. But I think first things first, let's let the Senate do their job, and hopefully we don't have to get to what the House is capable of doing.
Congressman, just to press you on that, would you demand that they investigate all the claims? So Julie Swetnick, all of the women. Do you think all of them need to be investigated?
Any woman that has come forward publicly with her name and her allegation should be investigated by the FBI. I don't think it's a thorough investigation unless they're interviewed. Unless Mark Judge is interviewed. I think it's very telling that he is unwilling to come forward publicly. He is the alibi witness.
Congressman, he has agreed to be interviewed by any law enforcement agency that promises to do so confidentially. That seems to be the one real output of what's different in this FBI investigation or background check than what we had and saw yesterday.
That's right. And, Ms. Ford did not testify confidentially. She raised her right hand and subjected herself to questions. Now, I hope that Mr. Judge means that he will be questioned in private by the FBI, but that eventually those interview notes would be made public and that he's forthcoming with those investigators.
You and I talk a lot about the intersection of Donald Trump's war on the Justice Department and any effect on politics on both sides. I've been very frank about thinking that it's terrible for our country and it's terrible for the Republican Party to always be at odds and to constantly take the side of harsh partisans like Devin Nunes over Republican-appointed FBI Director Chris Wray. But I want to ask you if the opposite is true. Does the Democratic Party have any sort of peril if it calls for the impeachment of a sitting Supreme Court justice after he goes through what is the process we have? Deeply imperfect, but we do have a deliberative process in the Senate. You did see Senator Chris Coons move to tears of sort of relief that process seemed to be working. Is there peril in moving forward with what Jonathan Swan reported today about trying to impeach a sitting Supreme Court justice at the suggestion of Michael Avenatti? No offense to Mr. Avenatti.
We shouldn't threaten that until the Senate completes its course. We shouldn't step on their proceedings and presume what they're going to do or not going to do. Yesterday was excruciating. It was one of the hardest days in my 6 years in public service to watch. Nicole, 27 years ago, that hearing with Anita Hill was regarded as a disgrace, yet 20 witnesses were heard from. Now we only heard from 2 witnesses, and it feels like we've gone backward. And emotions are high, the stakes are high, but again, I want to be able to count on the Senate. I think today was a good day. Let's see what the FBI is able to produce.
And you know, it's not that I don't love asking you questions, but I've got two of the best reporters in the country here, so I'm going to let another one of them, Jonathan Lemire, two Jonathans, ask you a question. Here he is.
Hi there. I'm going to pick up on the thread that the other Jonathan raised about impeachment, but this time the president. We're hearing the idea of Republicans are sort of rallying around the idea that if Democrats are trying to make impeachment a central issue this November for this midterms, that they welcome that fight. Republicans want that to happen. They think that could backfire. Yeah. Do you think that is a smart tactical move, or should instead be the Democrats, were they to take the House, be looking at sort of investigations and using the power of the subpoena?
I think the Republicans are trying to make fetch happen. They keep talking about impeachment. No Democrats are talking about doing that. We are promising we'll conduct the investigations that the Republicans are unwilling to conduct, but that this election really, from the candidates I talk to and the places I go, it's about protecting health care and protecting paychecks. But of course, we're not going to allow anyone to be above the law, and we're going to do the job that we are sent to do, and hopefully that's a job that's in the majority.
Let me ask you to weigh in on the other big story. It was only Monday of this week that Rod Rosenstein was summoned to the White House under a cloud of speculation about his job being in jeopardy, either that he might resign or be fired. What's your sense of his security and his importance at the Justice Department? He was supposed to meet with the president in what became a day overwhelmed by the Kavanaugh and Ford testimony. That meeting's been delayed, but still a lot of questions about a new fight, a new front between the Justice Department and the Republicans on the House Intel Committee over another round of deeply sensitive national security-related documents.
Yeah, Rod Rosenstein is Bob Mueller's boss. Firing Rod Rosenstein is the same as firing Bob Mueller, and I think it would be viewed by most Americans as committing obstruction of justice in plain sight. And the president, we shouldn't be fooled. This New York Times story where he is now relying anonymous sources to justify his concerns about Rod Rosenstein, this is just the latest pretext for wanting to fire Rod Rosenstein. For the last year, he's attacked Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein on Twitter. So we shouldn't allow him to rely on this latest excuse. We should just see this investigation to its completion. And finally, Nicole, no person has delayed the Russia investigation more than the president and the people around him who have obstructed, tampered with witnesses, and refused to sit down with investigators.
Congressman Eric Swalwell, we always love having you. Thanks for indulging all of our questions.